it's important for the founder actually to work as minimally as possible, because then the company that the private equity or the Sequoia of the world that want to buy you will be like, the company is already sustainable with or without you. And that's what they want, because they don't want a company where only you can make a difference. They want a company in which they can run without you. Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about time management for founders with the emphasis on solo founders. First, I'll talk about the hours I've worked in the last 6 years and some of the tricks I did to make myself more productive. As usual, the tips I have here are some of the more unusual ones. You can hear all the good ones, all the cliche ones in the books. And so I'm going to talk about some of the unorthodox ones. In 2020, that's when I was working at a big tech company as an engineering manager. And April of 2020, we wrote the first line of code for our startup. That year, I worked on average 50 hours a week. Now, one of the things I remember during that year is I walk around downtown Bellevue Park. It's a nice park in Bellevue. For those of you who are from Seattle, I remember walking there for like at least 2 hours a day on average, just listening to a ton of startup podcasts. During that time, I technically had 3 jobs. One job is I was an engineering manager at a big tech company where I was doing well. And I had multiple retention bonuses to keep me during the COVID time. And the second job is I started working on the startup, and I spent about $600,000 to hire engineers and get people onboarded. And we didn't do any marketing. It was just pure coding the product. I could have quit my job and raised a ton of money toward the later end of COVID, but I made to myself that what I had are 2 things. I made a lot of money, so I will use that money to bootstrap the startup. And if the startup fails, at least I learned something, but my net worth doesn't get affected. The second thing is I felt like I have a lot of time because of COVID. I was like basically stuck at home. And because I was stuck at home and I was at the company for like 5+ years at the previous tech company, I could do more with less. So I technically work in the company for about 35-40 hours a week and still got like exceed expectations. And I spend about 10-15 hours a week in the startup. The third job takes about 5 hours a week. The third job is I was doing real estate syndications. I still was doing that. And so basically it was 3 different jobs. One of them is a side job. I list 50 hours because that's the amount of time I was in front of a computer. The times in which I was listening to the podcasts around Bellevue Park, they don't count. And I will not count those towards working hours. Even though I was thinking about work, even though I was building up my knowledge and my skill set, I was not counting that as working hours. So that's 2020. 2021, our product officially launched. I list 50 hours for that year on average, 50 hours a week. And that year, I used our product for the very first time. Myself, we raised about, I think it was like $7 million that year using my product for my own syndication. And I also quit my tech job after doing this kind of dual life for 1.5 years. And the previous company, I got all the permission to work on it. Everyone knows I was working on it. The HR knows, everyone knows, but they still gave me a couple of retention bonuses to keep me. So I still only put 50 hours because the work was pretty chill. And the work in Casual Portal, the tech startup, is also pretty chill because there's no expectations. After the launch, we had a couple customers, and that's when I quit my job and we applied to Y Combinator and we got in. And that was a whole different story. So I list 50 hours a week for that year. 2022 is when we graduated from YC around April of 2022. And I list 55 hours on average a week for that year. And that's because I started hiring more people. I needed to manage. I visibly have more sales demos. And I was getting a lot of basically drawing in multiple directions in terms of the logistics of the company, the roadmap of the company. And I'm very thankful of the multiple listening to podcasts 2 years earlier to build kind of that awareness. But nothing teaches you better than real life experience. So I work more in 2022. 2023, I work on average 60 hours a week. That is the peak in 2023. 2023 is also one of my hardest years where I let someone really senior in the company go because of a mismatch. They were excellent, but they were not the type that we were looking for the company. I ended up doing a lot of sales. I also grew the team. We were burning money like crazy. So I was trying to salvage the situation by not doing like a systematic layoff. And so I worked 60 hours. It was a very painful year, but we did got into the millions of revenue that year. And now we're doing like, mid-single digits of millions of ARR. So that was a pivotal year where we put ourselves on the map and we put ourselves on a trajectory to survive, knowing that the odds are still very much against us because of the macroeconomic conditions. Again, that 60 hours does not count the hours in which I'm thinking about work. So I like to take these long walks and I think about work. Probably every one of those hours, you will add 10 hours to it. So 2023, if you count all the hours in which I was stressed and losing hairs over it and couldn't sleep because of it, I was working 70, maybe 75 hours. But 60 hours is the number of hours in which I was in front of a computer or writing an email. This is a good way to pause on what exactly is working hour. Like someone can say I work from 9 to 5 and they take an hour and a half lunch. They use the restroom multiple times, and then they go downstairs, get a coffee. Are you really working 8 hours that day or are you working 6 hours? To me, that's considered 6 hours. So when I say 60 hours, I mean 60 hours. A typical day in 2023 is I had to wake up at 5:20 a.m. Pacific time because I have the meeting at 6 a.m. And I basically was doing sales by myself the whole time. And I work from 6 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. Sometimes that demo will go into 5. And I couldn't have lunch in the middle of that day. It was just back-to-back meetings. That's what I say, 60 hours. And then this is in addition to on the weekend, I catch up on the roadmap and I catch up on what engineers did. And I was in a lot of the stand-ups. You can say, wow, that you are building a company in which you are micromanaging everything. And to that, I say, I completely disagree. I don't think that's micromanaging. I know what micromanaging looks like. I thought of it as building the foundation for a better tomorrow. So that's the peak. After that, it gets easier. 2024, it gets easier. I work about 55 hours a week on average in 2024. And that's the year in which I felt like I was just because we still had a burn rate, we were not profitable. I was like a quarterback that year. It's like, do this, do that, do this, do that, march forward. And I was not really throwing long balls. I was not going for the moon. I was trying to, but it was more about pushing one down, two down. And then it was more inching a little bit forward at a time. So a few wins here and there. We end up scoring a few touchdowns as a result of it. So we were not trying to Hail Mary anything, but we were very steady and disciplined that year. But I worked less because at the same time that I was trying to survive on the company's behalf, I'm also trying to build a sustainable team. 2025, which is last year, I work about 50 hours a week on average. So it's coming down. Beginning of the year, I was working a lot less. Toward the end of the year, I was working a lot more. And that actually taught me a kind of a wrong lesson in 2025, which is when I don't work hard, I almost feel like I got punished 6 months later. It felt like it was my fault that I did not see these issues coming. So that was the mindset I had toward the end of last year. 2026, which is this year, I have been working only 45 hours a week on average for the first month and a half. And this is our record high revenue, both in terms of the month-over-month growth and obviously in terms of the absolute value. So this year has been amazing so far. So I changed that mindset from the 2025 where I felt like at the beginning, I thought this is going to be self-sustaining company. I built the system because of 2024 and now 2025 is like a coasting towards the end result. And then toward the end, I found out that's not true. So I thought to myself, I feel guilty for slacking off in the early 2025. But 2026, I have a different mindset. Now to me, whenever 2026 so far, I only work 45 hours. It could actually go up. But the difference I know is a startup journey is like a bike ride. Sometimes the terrain is really good. Sometimes you're just going downhill. So you're coasting by far. You don't even pedaling. So that's some parts of 2025. Some parts you are going uphill and you have to scale up and, just climb the hell up. And it's not that I got punished. It's just that a startup goes through these different segments if it's compared to a bike ride. And 2026 just start off being a much better segment. That being said, we do have better systems in place. I do see that the team has been collaborating a lot more. I do see that now, instead of like me, like meddling of like, hey, let me talk to A and let me talk to B, A and B just go talk, and then I'm just gonna remove myself from that meeting altogether. It's better for me, it's better for them because they have ownership, and it just feels good for the whole company. So, I mean, I was doing part of that in 2025, but I'm like doing a lot of that in 2026. So now I don't think of it like, oh, slacking off is bad, I should feel guilty. Now I just feel, oh, this is just a season of my life in which my hourly contribution is not that useful. But the decisions I make 2 months ago were so useful on changing the course of the company. So like, I'm like, okay, I did my thing. Let the team observe this new momentum, and then let me just go conjure out some other thing in the back of my mind. And if the company needs me to come in and just like wrangle it, I'll come back. Come back in terms of like that, like a all-in obsession where I do this quarterback cycle. Now I'm just like more of a think of it as like a Magic Johnson, like passing the ball. So this is 2026. Now, the title of this talk is about time management for solo founders. So as you can see, it started with 50 hours in 2020, 50 hours 2021, 55 hours 2022, 60 hours 2023, 55 hours 2024, 50 hours 2025, and only 45 hours 2026. Again, this does not include the time I think about the company. This only includes the time I'm actively in front of a computer, more or less, or writing my monthly investor newsletter. That counts because I'm in front of a computer, or doing a demo. What I've learned this year, which happened by accident. So here are some tips for, especially if you're a solo founder, that you have to do sales and marketing and engineering and product, and you created multiple features. So our company has about 20, 30 people, 20 full-timers, and then you have the advisors, contractors, part-time designers, and so on, recruiters. So one tip that is super useful, let me drink something first. Think about wait for the tip. The best tip in 2026 happened by accident. I got a new phone, the iPhone 17 Pro Max. When I was getting the new phone, I had the option of like logging into Slack, and I did not log into Slack. I also had the option of downloading my work email on my phone. And I remember thinking to myself, it's the New Year's. Why don't I give a try of not downloading my work email? So I don't have my Slack and I don't have my work email on my new phone. That started in early January. And so what happens is that now I couldn't check Slack on my phone. Before 2023 to 2025, now thinking about it, it was hella dangerous. I would be like driving on the highway and I would be like responding on Slack. Sometimes I'd like pull over because a customer is like, yelling at us and I need to calm them down. Now I don't do that. Now that I'm like talking about this, you can say it couldn't happen if the team is not mature. Like, yeah, this is a great tip. But like 2024, I have done it. Yeah, I think I will still go back and download Slack. The maturity has to go up and my stress has to go down. And then it needs to meet some other equilibrium to cause me to get rid of Slack and get rid of email. But it has happened. And this has happened about 4 years after we graduated from YC. And that has been very, called a very grinding, gruesome 4 years. That's number one. That's very important. The second thing, then you're like, okay, if you don't check these things, how are you going to be productive? So the second thing in which helped me tremendously is I wake up around 6:20 a.m. Pacific, and I don't now start my first meeting, whether that's a demo or a team meeting, until 9 a.m. Pacific. So I have 6:20 until 9 to ponder and exercise. So what I typically do is I meditate. I actually meditate every day for the last like a year and a half. I walk towards the coffee shop for that takes about 35 minutes. I get coffee and walk all the way back. That's like an hour and a half done. And then during the coffee shop, I still don't have Slack and my email, but I will check my personal email. I will also not listen to any podcast, usually on the way to the coffee shop and back. And during that time, I just basically have a blank canvas. And what happens during my walk is that all the new ideas, everything I needed to do, responding to customer X, take care of employee Y, do product Z, or like take care of some logistical stuff A, I think about all of them and I tell this Apple Watch to record it. So for example, later I need to go to the postal office to do a address change. So I will say, Siri, remember to go to the postal office to do a errand.
Okay.
And it will add it. Then on my phone, it's a click of a button I create a whole video here. You can watch it here. And then I click of a button on my phone to put it on my daily to-do list. So at the end of my walk, I usually end up with 6 or 7 to-do lists. And because I'm doing it, I notice on Friday I have the least because I accomplish everything. And Monday is the biggest amount of work. It's just like a lot of stuff on Monday or Tuesday. And that's in the absence of the Slack notifications. If I have the Slack notification, it's almost like a stack. Your mind's like a stack. You don't move them in priority. You add things on top of it. And so I'm forcing my life to be a queue as opposed to be a stack. And it's actually, now that I'm like thinking about it during walks, it's a priority queue. The effect of that is when I come to work at 9 o'clock, and people are often surprised about this at work. Like they can see that like 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock ish, like I have like 8 Slack messages going out, like basically back to back over the course of like 45 minutes. People never said this to me, but like I'm sure people wonder, like, Perry, how do you have so many thoughts? How do you know what to do? And the answer is it's not like I think about them that time. I think about them during the morning walks. And then I'm very happy that on Friday, I just don't have as many morning thoughts anymore because I finish out, I need to do that. Oh, I've done it. Or I need to do this. Okay, I've done it. And then there's nothing else for me to do. But then on the weekend, I start thinking about the next week or thinking about usually the future. The best way I'll say is because as a solo founder, you have to do a lot and my mind is racing all the time. And that's not part of the 45 hours, right? So that's not part of it. I almost need a way to cleanse my mind. And so walks is kind of like the best tool I know to cleanse my mind. So that would be the number one time management tip, which is wherever you live, I hope that you're not really getting into a car when you wake up. I hope that you are within, a mile away from some coffee shop and it's a walkable thing and safe to walk, and that it's, close to water and trees, and that when you walk outside, you can see the sunlight, that it is just a nice, peaceful morning walk when the sun hasn't come out yet. For me, arriving back at home around 8:30, and then I have a 30 minutes to prepare everything for the 9 o'clock first meeting. That's a game changer this year. So I talk about lack of tooling to distract me, and I talk about this kind of like nurturing morning routine that allows me to push out all the ideas onto paper. So I know exactly the blueprint to execute for the rest of the day. The last thing I want to say about time management for solo founders is I do have an executive assistant. And because I'm not in front of the computer as much, like 45 hours, you think that's a lot. But like most of it is demos and one-on-ones and stand-ups. And I try not to attend as many stand-ups. That's of a side note. That's probably, you saw that in the book. So that's not one of the interesting advice. But the other thing is I do have an executive assistant. And she will go through all my emails. And this is just some recently implemented that if I miss anything from yesterday, let me know because I need to respond to this customer and so on. Usually it's an external customer. And there's a little bit of a guilt to that because like 2 years ago, there's this like whole thing about like the responsiveness you have as a founder is directly proportional to how successful you are. And good founders respond within 9 minutes. And to that, I don't feel that guilty because if I am at work, I do respond within hours or minutes. But there are certain times because of the number of meetings, and if they email me like 9 o'clock at night and I don't check my email, and then in the morning it's like 9 a.m., it's been 12 hours. And then I have a bunch of meetings. And because I have this to-do list, I execute those before I pay attention to my email. And so kudos to the team that there are no fire drills so far. Because, 2 years ago, usually when I come to the office and like office being my home, it's like it's fire drills first. and then, do my to-do list. Again, going back to this maturity thing, the company needs to be at some stable state in order for you to work 45 hours if you are a solo founder. And then if you count all the hours you think about work, just as a aside, you need to add all those numbers plus 10 to 15. So you are by default going to work 60, 65, 70 hours for basically 5 years straight before you can chill a little bit. Anyway, going back to this point, the last thing about time management is my executive assistant will let me know what emails I need to respond to. So I do have a small filter now that has only been implemented for the last week or so. And to me, that is also a game changer, because a lot of the stress comes from going through the emails and like, which one did I miss, which one did I not miss. And because you don't know what you miss, you keep going back and read the same things. So like it's the repetitive anxiety or the repetitive stress of keep opening up the email. If you can just get the substance out of the email, the real important things out of the email, and you respond to only those, it's going to help you a lot. Again, I am sure that this kind of advice was not applicable to me 2 years ago because nobody knows what's important. 2 years ago, I want to be in control. 2 years ago, you can call it, that's like very micromanaging because I have a specific way where the company will go. But now I am way more okay with it, and I prefer it this way because everything I just said is contingent on the company being stable. That's really important. I have listened to other podcasts. They say when your company hits $10 million ARR, that's the inflection point, and you don't want to raise Series A, B, C, D, and you want to keep it as a mostly bootstrap business where it's growing organically and that you're not taking venture capital funding, adding fuel to the fire, the founders can work less than 40 hours a week. So some of them actually work 35 hours a week. Specifically, if you want to sell the company one day, it's important to for the founder actually, to work as minimally as possible, because then the company that the private equity or the Sequoia of the world that want to buy you will be like, the company is already sustainable with or without you. And that's what they want, because they don't want a company where only you can make a difference. They want a company in which they can run without you. So working less hours is a positive sign for a solo founder. And it just stores that energy in case the company needs you, because they can need you at any time. So I could go on a vacation, and then like a week into my vacation, it's like, yeah, this is not good. I need to come back and save the company. That will happen, and that has happened. And the last thing I will also say about the time management part is, what's the purpose of creating a startup? The creating a startup is to help the founders to actualize some vision into the world, to help people, and also help themselves financially. So at the end, the founders should not do it to almost sacrifice their own well-being for the benefit of the company. It should be mutually beneficial to both parties, the founder and the customers and the company. For me, it's been called 6-7 years in which I was grinding really hard. And so this year, I have the goal of just spending some time in traveling around the world, spending, say, call it a week, a month in different cities in Asia, other parts of the US, and I don't need to work that many hours. So hopefully, right now I'm working 45 hours a week, but hopefully I get to work 40 hours a week or even less. And to me, you might be like 40 hours, that seems like a lot, but like it's substantially less than what I used to work before. So that's on the time management for the solo founder. Thank you so much for watching. This is a Saturday. I get to also dump out the things I gather during my Saturday morning walk. And what do you think? If you're a founder, where do you stand on the time management piece? What are your tips? You can put in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.